Hi, I'm Roderick Dean, and today we're coming to you from the Gust Public Housing Facility located in downtown New Orleans. And I have with me today Mr. Walter Gallus, and he's going to give us an interview about the housing situation here in New Orleans. So why don't you start, Mr. Gallus, by telling us who you're with, what your particular personal interest is, and how you came to be at this table.
My name is Walter Gallus, and I'm the director of the New Orleans Field Office of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And that office didn't exist prior to Katrina. We didn't have a full-time office down here in New Orleans, but because we saw what was at stake here in terms of the historic buildings, the historic neighborhoods, the historic resources that were endangered after both Katrina and Rita, our organization, which is based in Washington, D.C., made the decision to place 2 full-time staff members down here and to really get involved with and to show involved with the community, and then to show the world at large that it's possible to save these historic structures, as many of them as possible, that's reasonable, and to bring these neighborhoods back, and that demolition shouldn't be the first instinct when you see damaged properties. And of course, we're seeing that all played out around us here 2 years later after the storm.
And just your general spin, if you could tell us quickly, like who you are, where you were during Katrina, and how you got to be here today.
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
Where I was during Katrina, I was at my house during Katrina.
What's your name?
My name is Rosemary Johnson.
And you live where?
I live 2426 Washington Avenue. When the water came in.
And that's for people who don't live here.
CJP,
The
New Orleans,
CJP,
Louisiana.
public housing.
Yeah, public housing. When the water came in, I was still there, me and 2 other ladies. We didn't leave when everybody left because the water didn't come in our house. The water stopped at the step, and if you pass around there, you still see the water line. We was the last one to leave, and I was the first one to come back. When I come back here, first of all, they took me out here September the 4th, 05. That was a Sunday morning.
Who is they?
The helicopter, because
Okay.
we had to leave out our house, dry, clean house, to get in the water. The water got to us, it was at a standstill. We had to go in the middle of the street, Washington Avenue, to go in the park. We was airlifted out here from the park to the airport. From the airport, they brought us straight to El Paso, Texas. I didn't stay there long like the rest of them did. I came back October 6th. When the mayor said your zip code was open, you can come back, everybody come back, I came back. I landed that Thursday, October the 6th. And I went back to my house because I was able to use my key to go inside. And then when I go to work, my job called me, say you can come back to work. You all right and all this here. I went back to work. I've been on my job 27 years. I was staying in my house. All we needed was the lights. We had water, but they cut the water off because they seen people coming back in the CJP. So the rest of them didn't come back. They told them to stay away, go somewhere else. But I stood there. I was living in my house. Then when it started getting cold, I was from my house to my niece's house. And from there, I was checking on my house. But how could you check on your house when you had a key? When they send their workers, HUD and have no workers, to pop the locks on everybody's door.
I came down to New Orleans mid-August of this year. I was coming for the 2nd anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. I had been here for the 1st anniversary, and I came in December of '05 because I wanted to see for myself what it looked like. I was in New York when Katrina hit, but I saw the people on the rooftops pleading to be saved, and I got a sense of what was happening, that black people were being left to die here in New Orleans by the federal government, the state government, and the local government. But I wanted to see this on the ground. I wanted to see if what I thought was happening was really happening.
And
Yes. My name is Constance Hayes, and I live in Fisher. We're the only public housing over on the West Bank. We was the last ones to leave because Katrina did not affect us at all.
My name is Lily Walker Woodfall. I live in public housing, but I'm what you would call like everyone, we've been, demonized as to being shiftless and we don't work. I think everybody in here, all of us, we all work. The tearing down, that to me That's the Republicans, where you're gonna pay money to tear it down, and then they're gonna turn around and make money to put it up again. You see, they're not, basically not, why not do it in phase? Why can't you say, because some of those buildings could be saved, some of them can't. We understand that. We have never said we didn't want it completely, but we wanted it done in phase, where people could have. Because people need to go to work. You don't see anybody running around out here in the morning unless they're going to work. But that's never been said. I mean, if I wasn't from New Orleans and I heard the news, I would think everybody here don't work. All the poor people live in the ninth ward. And the majority of those people, their houses maybe wasn't much, but they own those houses. So I have disdain for this administration, because they just, that's the way of doing it, and that's what they're doing. Right now, the city, to me, right now, I think we basically know how that meeting gonna go tomorrow. Yes. We're gonna have, I think we know how it's gonna be. It doesn't matter. They're not thinking about, they're gonna do what they wanna do anyway.
And then they're gonna do it under the premise and the guise of, I'm doing what my constituency want me to do. When the truth of the matter is, they have political ambitions. Some of them have literally said it. They haven't said it to us, but they're saying it behind closed doors to others to whom they believe that they can have these conversations with. And so ultimately what happens is that we have politicians who are selling the communities out at their own game. But however, I think there's going to be some backfiring that's really going to take place with regards to all of this redevelopment. I believe that those individuals who have these political ambitions are going to be fooled at the end of the day. Right. That while they aspire to be in a congressional position or inspire to be the next city council, the next mayor, I don't believe it's going to happen, because the truth of the matter is, if you stand on the side of right, then you please everybody. All of us are not going to be happy with everything that you're doing. But I think that it's an absolute disgrace that our elected leadership in this city will not sit at the table with us and have an honest conversation with not just the residents of public housing, but people who are in the private sector who support what it is that we're doing in terms of redevelopment and in terms of phased redevelopment. That what is happening here is really criminal, that a select few can determine who can return back to this city. When New Orleans is absolutely nothing without the people who live in these neighborhoods, who work in those hotels, who work in those restaurants, who work out here on doing these construction jobs, and they are low-paying jobs. The average person that live in public housing make at least $7 an hour, the average person. You have very few people that live in these communities are making $8, $9, $10 an hour. It doesn't exist. And so while we have some elected officials who make the comments that you shouldn't want to be subsidized all of your life, won't even take a position to deal with the wage requirements, not only in this city, but across the country. How do you expect me not to be subsidized when in fact I make $6 an hour?
The 4 public housing developments that we're talking about, whose future hangs in the balance, are B.W. Cooper, Lafitte, C.J. Pete, and St. Bernard. Now, of those 4, the C.J. Pete, that housing development has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places for over 10 years now. That's an important fact in terms of what my organization is, because they were determined to be of a quality of building and of a design, and they represented what was best of the social reform movement of the late 1930s, the New Deal era of public housing out of the Roosevelt era. That's why they were placed on the National Register at the time. The other 3 housing developments since then have been determined to be National Register eligible, which means they all have the same qualities. And even the average person who doesn't know much about architecture can look at some of them, and especially most people respond locally to the Lafitte housing developments and say, my gosh, these are wonderful buildings, they've got tile roofs, they've got ironwork, they've got great wooden windows and so forth. And because of that, and because of the fact that you have a federal agency, of course, HUD, involved in planning for their demolition or their redevelopment, we got involved in the discussions because there's a federal law that requires a federal agency to take into consideration alternatives to what will happen to historic properties when they're making plans. And our frustration with this whole process is that HUD has made absolutely no serious good faith effort to consider alternatives.